You are connected, and you are listening to Specifically for Seniors, the podcast for those in the Remember When generation. Today's podcast is available everywhere you listen to podcasts and with video at Specifically for Seniors YouTube channel. Now, here's your host, Dr. Larry Barsh.
We all have questions about artificial intelligence and Chat GPT. Our guest today on Specifically for Seniors is Dan Steele. Dan is here to answer those questions. Dan is the author of 3 books on the subject: the book on Chat GPT, the book on Chat GPT 4, and AI Unhinged. Dan is a highly accomplished entrepreneur, author, and business strategist with 25 plus years of experience in tech. He co-founded the largest influencer marketing company and is a sought-after speaker on various topics, including artificial intelligence, social media strategy, and entrepreneurship. Welcome to Specifically for Seniors, Dan.
Thank you for having me, Larry. I'm glad to hop on.
Terrific. Let's get right to it. Can we start by defining the terms for our listeners who aren't aware of what each of these means? What is AI?
So, pretty simply, AI is when you take a lot of data, a robust data set, and you combine it with computer science to enable problem solving at a really fast pace.
And Chat GPT?
Chat GPT is a form of artificial intelligence that it was trained with this massive data set, including most of the internet and a lot of language. So it does language best. But it's what we call a generative AI. And what a generative AI system does is it creates things. So you feed it a massive data set, and then you train it on what it should and shouldn't do, and eventually it'll do creation on its own.
And AI can also be used in image generation, music generation.
Yes. So I guess to give an example of what's significant about what's happening now, we've had AI for years. I don't know if you remember when IBM Watson won on Jeopardy. That was all artificial intelligence. A company I started in 2013. We did a partnership with IBM. We had to raise about $15 million in venture capital to build what we needed to build in our partnership with IBM. But what's happened now is it's almost democratized artificial intelligence, Chat GPT, and it's made it accessible to where you don't need to a company doesn't need to raise $15 million to build a product anymore. And with that comes a lot of people doing a lot of things, and it's moving really fast, and it's kind of scary for people.
So what does the future hold with this onslaught of AI? Are we all in danger of coming face to face with the Terminator?
That's there's a lot of theories, and anybody who claims to know, I think, would be a little disingenuous with that. So I went when I was a kid. I'd go to the hardware store, and there was a big funnel, and you put a quarter in it, and it would roll around the funnel. I don't know if they do them anymore. So I talk about it as if the internet's the very top of the funnel, the quarter going, and then around the middle of the funnel is when we invented the cell phone, and then at the very bottom where it goes really, really, really fast is kind of where we're at now with the way all of this is working. So to know exactly what it's going to hold, I think people are making a lot of money claiming to know exactly what it's going to hold, but I don't think anybody knows.
The big news this week is that the so-called godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, left Google to speak about the dangers of AI and it being an existential threat to humanity. What's your feeling on this?
It's really interesting because so on one hand you have people coming from these big companies that have a massive advantage, especially if we slow down. And there's a lot of regulation on it. The more regulation you have, the more it'll slow down innovation. So you have folks stepping out of big companies and saying, "Hey, we need a lot of regulation on this." Where you have other countries who probably have little to no regulation or a more uniform approach to taking on AI. So it is a interesting, because if it is as dangerous as everybody as these people are saying it is, we probably want to slow down, but also we want to remain competitive with other countries. So thank goodness I'm not the president and I don't have to make these decisions.
Uh, okay, so we've gotten the threat version of AI out of the way. Let's talk about the benefits of AI. Where do we see it in use today?
So as I mentioned earlier, by making it more affordable, we're seeing a lot more uses. So at Influential, the product we built was it was an advertising product. So imagine you're Disney and you want to promote a new film, and we would go and we would match the audience that you're looking to reach. We would figure out who that audience was, and then we would find people with big social media followings that shared that same audience, and then we would use machine learning and natural language processing to figure out how those people talked about Disney, and we would create content that was very authentic to the Disney fans. And the content, so we, kind of taught the influencers how to speak using artificial intelligence, and that content was a very effective ad. It was so effective that it was getting more likes and tweets and shares than their normal content. Like I said, that cost us about $15 million to do. Now I can go and I can prompt Chat GPT, and I can solve a lot of the same problems, and I can do that as an individual for about $10. Uh, do all of that processing that we used to have to do and all that build and everything. We can go from $15 million down to $10. And what that allows is for small businesses that you when you're a small business, you can't afford to hire a big ad agency, and big ad agencies would do things like search engine optimization. So, when people would search your name, you would want to be the top ranked for, Larry, right? Um, that was very expensive, some prohibitively, like $10,000 to $30,000 a month. And now individuals are able to use this service, just the core Chat GPT service, for $20 a month, and then another generative AI that would create images for you for like maybe another $20 a month. And they're able to compete for search engine terms with these companies that are paying $10,000 to $20,000 a month. And it covers a lot of different fields, but that's a good example.
So I could promote this podcast using AI.
Yeah, a good example is a friend went to work for an attorney, and he got that attorney to rank for number one for dog bites in the Las Vegas metro area, and a couple other terms that were really really expensive. And he was able to hire this kid, for lack of a better term, for not that much money, and he was competing for these search terms where he wouldn't have been able to compete before.
AI is in use in a lot of things that most people are unaware of. Autonomous vehicles and aircraft, Facebook, Twitter, most social media, digital assistants. Siri is a great example of that. Where else would you see this in use?
In the grocery stores, a great example is when let's say when there was a shortage of toilet paper a few years ago, all of the it's called timely delivery. So everything that sits on the shelf in a grocery store is there as short as it can. So we know that if this store in this town sells 15 packages of toilet paper each day, they're going to have about 16 packages of toilet paper, and they're not going to have a warehouse between the manufacturer and the store. It's just shipping straight out to stores now, so they're cutting out steps and making things more efficient. But a negative side to that is they only get their 16 things of toilet paper every day. So if people go buy a bunch of them, the computer can't correct fast enough to keep the inventory stocked. It's more a stable environment. It makes it so that there's less waste and there's less carbon footprint because you're not filling another storage facility. You're not trucking it from one place to another to another. You're just going straight from the manufacturer, but it still has its limitations as well.
What about when we're in our automobile and we use Google Maps or Apple Maps, Waze?
Yeah, Waze is a great example of one of the first places that people would have noticeably interacted with artificial intelligence. What Waze does, it doesn't provide you just a route. It takes all of the cars that are using the service and it sees, okay, this car is supposed to be going 55, but it's going 20. Something's going on. Oh, now we have 5 cars that are going 20 miles an hour. I'm going to start rerouting people around this congestion zone. And it would, in real time, it would update and learn and start rerouting you on maps. Google bought them very early on, but they allowed them to stay autonomous and build on their own for quite a while. And now I believe Apple's even buying data from them. So it's telling you when there's an accident ahead and it's rerouting you and that sort of thing.
So it's more than just people reporting
Yeah.
what the traffic is.
Yeah. It's even taking into consideration weather reports now.
But there can be abuses as well as all these uses. Plagiarism, yes. Deep fakes.
We have a really it's really interesting to see because for instance, YouTube, which started in like 2003, 2004, somewhere in there, I'm not sure the exact year, we're just now starting to legislate around intellectual property on YouTube. Like 18, 20 years later. And we're building a pretty good system too, but it's really, really slow. With the speed at which AI is moving, I don't know that we're going to be able to keep up with this. And I think it's going to be more of a beg for forgiveness than ask for permission thing. I think a lot of the laws and stuff will be. We tend to do this. Online gambling is a really good example of, some companies like Poker Stars and Party Poker. They all came out and they just launched in the U.S. market. Eventually, the government said it was illegal. They paid fines, and then within 5-10 years, they were able to operate their own online casinos here. I think we're gonna have the only way that we're gonna with the way that our government works is that's how the legislation is going to go around copyright and that sort of thing here.
A lot of people are worried about deep fakes and fake news bots. Is this going to be a problem?
Yes. It's almost getting to the point where you can't tell whether something is real or fake. And unfortunately, with the way that the incentives are lined up for media, websites in particular, the more people come to their website, the more money they make. So right now, most of the major news publications, or all of them across the board, will put out stories and then go back and retract things, as opposed to the old way of journalism where you had to have confirmation 3 times. So I fear that, we'll put some deep fakes will get put out there, altered videos, that sort of thing. And then 2 weeks later, when it doesn't matter, they'll say, oh, we're sorry, we didn't mean to do that. But I don't know the solution for that either.
I was just going to ask you, is there any way to determine what's real and what's fake? I mean, just as a user, without computer systems to help us along.
There's people building software, but nothing super accurate yet. It's, was it believe none of what you hear and half of what you see? I'd probably take that down to 5%.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's getting to be that much of a problem.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the future of AI and how it can benefit older adults. This is specifically for seniors. So yeah. What can we look forward to?
So automated systems inside the home, it's no longer just life alert. You have, you can have these little speakers put throughout your house. Examples, like my wife and I have recently got into cooking a lot at home. So there's only two of us, and most recipes are for 48 people. So we'll put a copy and paste a recipe into Chat GPT and say, "Hey, make this for two people," or "Hey, here's the 5 recipes we want to make this week. Um, Cut them down to two people, and then build us a grocery list." A lot of simple tasks will become a lot easier now. Um, and accessibility to just the world is there. Delivery. Amazon is a great example. My mom is a senior citizen, lives in a retirement home in Michigan. I'm able to order for her, and all of the deliveries show up to her, and all she doesn't have to do much other than opening boxes now. When she first moved in, she tried going to the store herself, and she had to schedule a ride because she can't drive and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to use Alexa through Amazon, and she's able to make shopping lists right through that. So there's a lot of when I was a kid, having bifocals was the sign that you were getting old. And I went in this year and I had to get what would have been bifocals, but now they call them progressive lenses. So now you can't even see that I'm getting old as much. I think that it's going to continue. The technology is going to continue to advance like that.
Our white beards don't give anything away.
Yeah.
I wish the strap on the headphones was a little wider, cover up some of the white and the bald spots. Uh, what about virtual companions, interaction with robots? Is that coming for seniors?
I there's still something authentic. So the books that I wrote, we'll get to them, but I sent one to my best friend's mom. She reads everything that I do, whether it's a business proposal or anything. And she was saying, when she'll read, long form text that I wrote, she would fly through the pages. She could feel my soul in it. She's like, that's a person. But then when she read the book, she's like, it was just, I mean, it was structured perfectly, grammar was perfect, but it didn't have that authentic Dan Steele behind it. So I think we're a little ways away from that. Simple conversation, simple chat, sure, but deep, authentic conversation, you just can't fake that yet.
So there won't be robots making meals for us.
We're pretty far out from that.
There's some talk about health trackers and uh, ways to detect cognitive decline
Yes.
with AI as well.
Yeah. So there's different websites. I haven't spent too much time looking at it on the cognitive side. I did get Apple Watch for the first time this year, and it does track. I was coming down with a cold, and I didn't realize. You didn't realize it, but it was able to alert me like, "Hey, your breathing is off and your heart rate's a little off. You might want to, see a doctor, get things checked out." And lo and behold, the next day I had a cold and I was able to stay home. But it got ahead of it just from looking at my vitals, and sharing that information with healthcare will be invaluable.
AI sounds like a miraculous tool, but there are things it cannot do,
Yes. So,
like
like give you a human experience. It can't make moral decisions. Thank goodness it's programmed around that. Um, but it's mostly around that authentic human experience. It's just not there, and I don't see it getting there anytime soon.
I asked Chat GPT at one time to tell me a few jokes.
Okay.
And that was another experience of things that AI doesn't do well. It has no sense of humor. It listed about 12 dad jokes that were the worst ones I had ever heard or read, rather. So,
Yeah. But if you fed it an archive, because we were talking about using computers with big data sets, if you fed it an archive of just comedians' jokes, it would be able to read the jokes and it would be able to come up with the concept of funny. However, a comedian, which I think is one of the purest art forms, they spend a lifetime working on timing, reading a crowd, that sort of thing. Nuances, like you say the joke, and then there's a tagline after the joke, and sometimes you use the tagline, sometimes you don't, depending on how the crowd reacts. That's just, we're so far from that with computers that I wouldn't be too worried about it.
So nuanced language is not going to be a big feature of AI.
Not, I mean, that's where I could get proven wrong, but I see that as 10 years down the road, maybe. I guess the big picture of where I see it, and I guess this impacts everybody. Imagine sitting down on Friday night and saying, "I want to watch Martin's film in the style of Martin Scorsese, set in the 1950s with Leonardo DiCaprio as your star, and it's a romance." And then within 10-15 minutes, you could just watch that movie, and you're just limited to how creative you are. Um, that's going to come a lot from more people using the AI and it learning more. But I see that as like a long term possibility.
So you're alluding to the fact that maybe AI will actually help us improve our language skills.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the applications that I deal with a lot of other technologists, and when this all came out, we kind of just had a phone call to see where what we were all thinking. And one of the applications that we thought would be the best right now is a way for people to chat with a small delay. So Cuban Spanish and Argentinian Spanish is very different. It's almost like two different languages, but the AI models understand the difference in region. So I could say something in Southern English, and it could go out to somebody who speaks from Argentina and somebody from Cuba, and it can come to them in a natural way, with like a maybe 1 to 2 second delay. That's the most interesting application right now.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've found playing with ChatGPT, a lot depend and the visual AI processes as well. You really have to be pretty skilled in your input to get good stuff out.
Yes. That so for writing the book, the way that I came up with the first book is I was talking with my wife. And I said, wouldn't it be funny if I could get ChatGPT to write a book about ChatGPT? And the outputs, so the normal paragraph is about 2,000 words, and the outputs, the longest output I could get out was 600 words. So I had to play with it. And so what I did is I broke each chapter down into sections, and then when it spit out a section, I'd be like, okay, now write section two, and I'd be reading it, and it would just repeat this stuff from section one. So then I'd have to improve the prompt. It took me about a week to get all my prompts down in order to do that. But that's changing. It's that's where most of the consumer facing applications are, or the stuff that you and I would use every day, would be the different things are just making it easier and not having to use be so good with the prompts, and that's where the short term winners are going to be.
So you mentioned your books. Did you actually use ChatGPT to write these three books?
Yes, yep,
Really?
absolutely. Yeah, it took the process of writing a book. It took me, obviously, I had to modify some language, but for the most part, they were all written and structured by ChatGPT. And it took the process of writing a book from, I've maybe tried to start writing 50 or 60 books in my life, never got past the first chapter. And now I can get a book out in about 8 hours.
It gives me, I tried to write a novel at one time, and I'm going to say the first chapter was pretty good. The rest of the 55,000 words were awful. Would you suggest I put that first chapter into Chat GPT as a prompt?
That could be interesting and see where it goes. Um, yeah, so I would you have all the you have the chapters laid out for your novel.
That's one of the
Oh,
problems.
you don't have like the story started here and then it just kind of gets lost in chapters 2 and 3
and 4 and 5, and it
yeah.
gets
Yeah, that's definitely something that could help.
I will. That's interesting. I'm going to give it a try. And I wonder if people listening would try it as well. I had never heard the comments you made about recipes, and I think that might be of a lot of interest to some of the people listening here.
And then for the folks with grandkids and great grandkids, my friend my friend and his wife made a application called Tall Tales. And what you do is you input the kid's name. So let's say Lucy, and something that they're interested in, say unicorns, and it spits out a bedtime story about Lucy playing with unicorns. And you can be the coolest grandma or great grandma if you can sit down with the kid. It's called Tall Tales. It's on iPhone, and you can do a unique bedtime story every night for them.
It's an app for
iPhone, and it's called Tall Tales.
Tall Tales. I'm going to note that in the description below, because I think that would be real fun for grandparents.
Especially, I know I slip behind on technology sometimes, but to be the first one to show it to a kid, I think that'd be pretty cool and pretty special.
How did you come up with the idea of using Chat GPT to write the books?
It just riding in the car with my wife, like, wouldn't it be funny if I could do this? It was kind of a cheeky thing. And then I like finishing tasks. So when I got started with it, it was a lot more complicated than I thought. I had it write the book, and then I kind of tried to lay it out the way that I thought a book would be laid out. And you come to find out that Amazon has their own templates, and those templates that you get from Amazon are not the easiest to use. So I spent quite a bit of time learning those templates. So it turned into just this learning process, and the ability to go from, hey, I have this idea, to, hey, somebody paid for it, it only takes about 2 or 3 days before people are able to buy your book.
Did we miss anything? Anything you'd like to add?
I would say I really feel like this technology levels the playing field, and you don't have to be a genius sitting in a laboratory in Silicon Valley in order to do things anymore. And there's a lot of opportunity, especially for older folks, because it just makes things easier. And if you can embrace it and figure out how to use it, life will just be a little bit better.
This has been great fun, Dan. I think people are going to appreciate learning a little bit more and getting over the panic that the media seems to be instilling in everybody. It probably makes good copy.
Yeah, it gets clicks, and it gets eyeballs. If the headline was "Everything's normal, nothing to worry about," would you click the article?
Yeah. Thanks again, Dan. This has been super.
All right, thanks for having me.
If you found this podcast interesting, fun, or helpful, tell your friends and family, and click on the follow or subscribe button. We'll let you know when new episodes are available. You've been listening to Specifically for Seniors. We'll talk more next time. Stay connected.